It was the greatest. I had 107,000 people show up in New Jersey 3 weeks ago.
Right. Daniel, take it away.
He said there was world peace in 2020. There was very much not. He said he won Wisconsin in 2020. He lost. He said the Democrats rigged the 2020 election. A lie. He said people around President Biden cheat on elections. No. He said people's votes tend to disappear. They simply do not. He said 107,000 people attended his recent rally in New Jersey. That's at least tens of thousands too high. He said Biden orchestrated his New York criminal trial. Zero evidence of that. He said he was indicted more than infamous Al Capone. No, Al Capone had more indictments than him. He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 soldiers on January 6th. She never got such an offer and would not have had the power to reject it even if she did.
Stop! He's already dead.
And it's only Tuesday.
By now, most are very well aware that fact-checking Trump, a man who back in February was fact-checked for the 1,000th time by bipartisan publication PolitiFact, is a full-time job, but nonetheless a necessary one. Days after reportedly calling Milwaukee, quote, horrible, the former President Donald Trump rallied with his supporters just south of Racine, in one of the country's top battleground states. And for those that need a refresher, yes, I'm talking to those in Wisconsin.
10 new billboards quoting recent reported comments from former President Donald Trump, saying, quote, Milwaukee, where we are having our convention, is a horrible city.
Actually, this is awesome town. I don't know what he's talking about.
The comment coming during a closed-door meeting with House Republicans Thursday.
This is the same Racine that Trump promised to make into the, quote, 8th wonder of the world, bringing with him a golden shovel to the groundbreaking of a Foxconn project he promised would change their lives forever. But akin to the night he promised Stormy Daniels, it meandered and failed to live up to expectations.
Damn!
When my predecessor came to Racine with the promise of, quote, reclaiming our country's proud manufacturing legacy, the administration promised a $10 billion investment by Foxconn to build a new manufacturing complex, create 13,000 new jobs. In fact, he came here with your Senator, Ron Johnson, literally holding a golden shovel, promising to build the 8th wonder of the world. Are you kidding me? Look what happened. They dug a hole with those golden shovels, and then they fell into it.
And yes, this is the same Racine that President Biden announced a $3.3 billion investment by Microsoft to build a new artificial intelligence data center, creating 2,300 union construction jobs and a further 2,000 permanent jobs over time. But despite what some would assume to be the clear disparity between both, a crowd still gathered as the former president lied about the economy, the border, everything and anything, while wandering into shark-infested conversations again, which is becoming quite the staple for this unhinged lunatic.
Beautiful, right? What's better, this or sitting on the Pacific or the Atlantic, which has sharks? You don't have sharks. See, that's a big advantage.
Thankfully, CNN's Daniel Dale was on hand to break down 30 false statements made by Trump during this event. I mean, side note for a second, can you imagine the endless Fox News coverage if Biden said merely one inaccurate statement, let alone 30 in the time he spent rambling?
Daniel, take it away.
He said there was world peace in 2020. There was very much not. He said he won Wisconsin in 2020. He lost. He said the Democrats rigged the 2020 election. A lie. He said people around President Biden cheat on elections. No. He said people's votes tend to disappear. They simply do not. He said 107,000 people attended his recent rally in New Jersey. That's at least tens of thousands too high. He said he saved Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2020 during rioting when the Democratic governor wouldn't act to intervene. In fact, that governor deployed the National Guard before Trump told him to. Trump said cocaine was found at the White House about a month ago. That was actually about 11 months ago. He said it was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cocaine. It was a little bag, maybe generously in the hundreds of dollars worth. He said Biden orchestrated his New York criminal trial. Zero evidence of that. He said Biden was also behind all of his cases, including civil trials. Baseless again. He said Biden wandered off at the G7 and didn't know where he was. No, Biden was briefly chatting with a skydiver who had landed near the group. He said he was indicted more than infamous Al Capone. No, Al Capone had more indictments than him. He said he was in Washington the other day for one of his trials. He was actually there for meetings with congressional Republicans. He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 soldiers on January 6th. She never got such an offer and would not have had the power to reject it even if she did. He said the January 6th committee deleted all all records just did not happen. He said he's the only president who didn't start a war. Jimmy Carter didn't start any wars. He said he finished the war in Syria, no, and got U.S. soldiers out. He actually left hundreds of troops there. He said Syria and Turkey have been fighting over their border for, quote, 2,000 years. That border, Abby, is less than a century old. He said insane asylums are being emptied by foreign countries to let people come to the U.S. as migrants. His own campaign cannot substantiate this claim. And he also said prisoners are coming in from jails in the Congo over the border. His campaign can't substantiate that either. He said President Obama cannot deport criminals to Latin American countries. Obama, in fact, could. He said Venezuela's crime is down 72% because of emigration to the U.S. Venezuela's violent deaths are actually down 25%, and that's for a variety of reasons. He said 17 or 18 million people have now entered illegally over the border. Experts say that's many millions too high. He said Biden's plans would quadruple your taxes. Total fiction. He said canceling Keystone XL, the pipeline, cost 48,000 jobs. That is wildly inflated. He said total inflation under President Biden is 40 or 50%. It's actually 19%. He said before he took office, there was a 500 billion trade deficit with China. It has never been that high. And in fact, the record was set under Trump in 2018. He said no previous president has taken in even 10 cents in tariff money from China. It is Americans who pay those tariffs. And the U.S. has actually had such tariffs on China since the 1700s. And finally, he said we're in the worst crime wave in modern history. Crime has actually plummeted in 2023 and so far in 2024. Abby?
And it's only Tuesday.
But here's the important point, right? This needs to remain a staple. Yes, we all know he lies. Yes, we all know it's tiresome. And yes, you'd hope that even those aligned with whatever shark attack, whale killing windmill policy he's rambling about would eventually get turned off by a man who still thinks that he won 4 years ago. But they're not. And as harsh as that is to hear, it's the truth. And so we can't turn off either, just as Fox News are purposeful and aggressive in their efforts to muddy the waters of truth.
Biden's not doing anything like that. Look at the contrast of just this weekend. You got Donald Trump in Detroit talking to 8,000 people, and then at a black church, of course. By the way, he did that.
They keep saying, oh, black people are going to him. Can we look at the church? Can we get a visual of the church?
Of the black church.
Yeah.
But he goes to this black church in Detroit, and his campaign does not take any steps to avoid the pews being completely filled with white people, with white Trump supporters. Then on the day, the message of his supposed campaign is that he's trying to appeal to black voters, right? That's the whole point of doing this photo op. He then goes straight from that venue, stuffed with white people, to a conference hosted by this guy who has been in the news for the last few months. For saying, quote, we made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s.
We must be as diligent, if not more, in our efforts to combat that. As Jon Stewart highlighted perfectly on a panel recently discussing weaponized media, you cannot relent because they most certainly will not. They are tenacious and precise in their efforts to make the truth malleable, so that when Trump lies 30 times, it's up for debate whether he's actually lying or not.
Even if it doesn't change the landscape, even if the efficacy, you cannot relent. The difficulty we have with weaponized media is it is weaponized. It's tenacious and it's purposeful. Media has been weaponized for a reason. That's not just something that's a phenomenon of now. That's, Randolph Hearst and yellow journalism. And, that's been with us forever. What is generally not as tenacious is hopefully the corrective course or the coming back the other way. And you can't ever give up the post. There always has to be something as unrelenting and as tenacious. Like all of this happens in a room. None of this is by accident. Fox News exists because Roger Ailes in 1973 or 4 said, we will never let something like this happen to a Republican politician again about Nixon, meaning we will never allow the truth to sail by unopposed. And we will, this has been the purpose of that experiment over 50 or 60 years has been the institutions that support the general foundation of American life and freedom and progress don't suit our agenda. So we will build a parallel universe of think tanks and universities and institutions and media. and we will shift when time is ready, we will throw the switch and shift society onto that field. And you can only take away its power by demystifying it.
And I've said this to anyone who listens. Aside from the Supreme Court that he stacked with medieval justices hell-bent on dragging us back in time, the most damaging thing that Trump did is he made truth a debate, sowing seeds of doubt into every single thing. The point that people who dropped out of high school science think that they know better than a doctor who spent his entire life researching.
You think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked and he belongs in prison.
Would suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor as a doctor.
And Trump has widened the media landscape for this type of content, where facts and fiction mull together and suddenly climate change isn't a scientifically proven fact, it's debatable. His lies, so many of which go unchecked, play a major role in the destabilization of the only thing standing in the way of preserving democracy. And I fear if he's given a second bite at fascism, those pillars, those tenets of democracy will fall too.
Enough! Send him to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.